Today was finally the first day of practice where the pads were allowed to be on, which means we finally get to talk about one of the most intriguing battles of the Ravens' entire offseason, the offensive line. Let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media. Football season is back. Training camp is back. Practice is back. Consistent interviews are back. The content is back, which means the daily videos are making a return. Very excited starting it this weekend. Obviously, we have the Hall of Fame game coming up very soon, jumping right into some preseason games, and then we're essentially at the start of the season. So very, very close. Hopefully you guys are enjoyed your summer, enjoyed your break. I felt like the reason why I wasn't making the daily videos was I didn't like how in recent off seasons, I felt like even though I was putting out consistent content and every day, it felt like so often I was talking about the same thing, or even if I had a slightly different spin, it just felt weird saying almost the same arguments consistently. Now, whenever Ravens news happens, I like to talk about it. So I try to talk about it, when we sign players or, if there were big media discussions about the Ravens, but I'm like, we have these conversations every offseason. I'm done with them, but now we're back and we're talking about the offensive line. So if you don't know about the Ravens' key losses in the offseason, lost our right guard, lost our left guard, lost our right tackle. Okay, that's a lot of change that we're going to be looking at in this offensive line. We obviously have new players. We have developing players as well. So Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum are looked at as locks. And then last year, we drafted Andrew Voorhees in the 7th round. And he was looked at as a player that was potentially a day 2 guard. And there are very, 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 very few day 1 guards. So a day 2 guard is a great guard prospect. All right. He was looked at as day 2, probably round 3 player. Massive knee injury at the combine, has to sit out. So we took him to develop him. And a lot of people are expecting he's going to take over that left guard spot. Okay, then we look at right guard. We have Ben Cleveland fighting for it. We have Patrick McCarry fighting for it. We have Saleh fighting for it. And now, according to John Harbaugh and other reports, we are trying out Daniel Faalele at guard. So adding another guy into the mix. Not to mention we drafted Roger Rosengarten, who's another player that can play guard or tackle. A lot of players fighting for guard, a lot of players that can play tackle. So we have Roger, we have McCarry, and we have Faalele that can play tackle, that can play guard, all of them. And first off, I want to talk about Faalele because he's switching over. Tyler Linderbaum was one of the people who had press conferences today, and he talks very highly of him, talking about how he's making a seamless transition and he's picking it up really quickly. And that is very difficult for someone of his size to be able to play on the interior, right? Like, I think when he was drafted, he was 6'9", 370 pounds. He's probably slimmed down a little bit, I would assume, waiting for like the full depth chart and everything like that to be announced so we get to see like the full weights and everything like that. The Ravens don't put out an official, like this is the number 1 and 2. Like in terms of order, they'll put out who the starters are, but they won't say, wide receiver 3 is this guy. They'll say, here's our starting lineup. But hopefully we get to see what his playing weight is going to be. But he's battling now. He's sitting there next to Roger Rosengarten and potentially Daniel Faalele if he slides into that right guard spot. But that's 2 players that we have fighting for guard that were drafted day 2 that high expectations were created for. Ben Cleveland, as we call him, Big Sexy. He was drafted out of Georgia, 3rd round, and it was like, okay, we need guard. And then luckily, like this isn't a bad thing, but luckily the Ravens had some guys that really stepped up, right? We had some good free agency signings. We had some good guard play. But now all those guards are gone. And we're going to have to see, okay, is Ben Cleveland who we drafted him to be? Or is he going to be sitting the bench once again this season? Then Daniel Faalele. This is not a player we expected to start right away. He was drafted, and Joshua and I, we liked Daniel Faalele, but it was like draft him to sit, have him be Ronnie's replacement, or potentially if we signed another guy, which we ended up doing, we signed we got rid of him, but we signed our other tackle. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name, but he backed up our right tackle last year. He played a little bit, but now it's like, okay, you've had a couple of years to develop. Let's see if we can get you out there. And we were thinking tackle. But now he's potentially fighting at guard. We draft Roger Rosengard, and he's a potential day one starter. So it looks like Daniel Faalele is doing good. But then we also have heard very good things about Andrew Voorhees, saying that he's looking really good. He's picking up quickly. I also read that he was also getting trained a little bit at center, which was really interesting, as potentially similar to like Patrick Macari, where if he doesn't win the starting job, having him, getting him as a backup potentially at all the positions on the interior could be very beneficial. The Ravens like to do that with their backup players having versatility. That's what they did with Faalele last year. Remember, he was a tackle prospect. We started working him at guard. It's just going to be something that we have to pay attention to. Now, this isn't going to be solved in one camp day, right? Today was the first day. It's not going to be solved then. It's not going to be solved based on how they do in the first preseason game. The biggest thing that we all need to be focusing on is the consistency of the players in camp. That's the biggest thing every year, because there's always guys that have a great day. Almost every player on every team is going to have at least one great practice. And I'm going to be frank, I don't care if you have one great practice. We care about having consistent good practices, right? Those are the things that matter. We've already seen a strong start from Voorhees. We've seen a strong start for Faalele. We got to see how Roger Rosengarten, we got to see how Ben Cleveland are able to bounce back and see if they can end up taking those spots. But let me know in the comments down below. Let me know your guys' thoughts and opinions on the Ravens left guard position, right guard. If you think Faalele should be playing left guard or potentially tackle, let me know. Thank you all so much for watching. Subscribe for more. I'll see you again tomorrow.